Ladies and gentlemen, wow, we have a full house tonight. It's great to see everybody here. Welcome to the April 5th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your cell phones. We used to say electronic devices, but if you're still carrying a beeper, I doubt you're here, right? So if you would, please stand and join me with the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we ask your wisdom and guidance as we begin our meeting tonight. May we always be mindful of our duty to advance the common good of all, particularly those less fortunate than ourselves. We thank you always for the gift of freedom, and we pray for those throughout the world who are suffering from poverty and oppression. We ask you for your help in healing the divisions in our great nation so that we may continue to help spread the cause of freedom. And we pray especially tonight for an end to the violence in Ukraine. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda tonight is a proclamation for National Library Week. Library Director Teresa Frazier would like to approach the podium, please. Good evening. How are you? Good. Welcome. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions where people of all ages, interests, and backgrounds can come together and learn. And whereas libraries of all types are at the heart of their cities, towns, schools, and campuses, libraries offer members of the community a welcoming space and opportunities to explore new passions through technology, programs, and services. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the population they serve, libraries and librarians work hard to create an equitable society by providing free access to accurate information. Whereas libraries are a resource for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender, identity, or socioeconomic status, by offering services and educational programming that transform lives and strengthen communities. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Ross, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim April 3 through 9, 2022 as National Library Week. So, thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes.
Good.
For all of you that know me, you know that I love bragging on our library staff. Well, we have a comment box in the library, and I thought I'd share some of the comments that our patrons have made for our staff. All the staff are very helpful. Thank you. Staff was very attentive and helpful. Wonderful experience. It was my first time here and I felt right at home. We are very lucky to have the library. I really appreciated everything the staff did to help me. Thank you. Love this library. The library staff are wonderful teachers, courtesy and patience, excellent customer service, very patient and helpful. Help me create an invoice and a logo. And finally, I want to give y'all a huge thank you. In addition to getting us both through the first year of the pandemic with a phenomenal selection of online books, the Temple Terrace Library has literally been my companion for the past year. Well, y'all and Spencer, our four-legged kid. Chris, my husband, died at the start of the second year. Sunday will be exactly 1 year ago. Chris was so proud of his original green Temple Terrace library card. Funny, our library card renewal is the same time as his first anniversary, and books were instrumental in our initial attraction to each other. I'm going to look at this as another hello from the other side. Thank you all for all you do.
Thank you. That was
Very nice.
And I want to say thank you to the council for all your support.
Well, thank you and to you and your staff, and please extend our appreciation for the job they do for all of our community. And what you just read to us is but a fraction of the comments that people make to us on a regular basis about our employees, library and otherwise. So thank you to all of our staff for what you do for us. So let me bring this down.
Now the obligatory picture.
Carl, can I prefer that?
No help.
Make sure I'm giving you the right one. Not water treatment or something like that. Either way, this is fine.
Here, scoot over a little
We
bit.
need to get this in.
Yep.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
We have one more. Good evening, Mr. Chambers. I didn't get the chance to say hello to you yet. So, this proclamation is in recognition of the 60th anniversary of the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and on behalf of the Planning Council, our very own Councilmember Chambers, who is our representative on that, will accept the proclamation. This proclamation is whereas the City of Temple Terrace recognizes that over the past 60 years, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council has served our citizens and member governments by providing a forum to foster communication, coordination, and collaboration in identifying and addressing issues and needs regionally. And whereas the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council was the first regional planning council in the state of Florida, and is recognized as Florida's only multi-purpose regional entity that can plan for and coordinate intergovernmental solutions to growth-related problems on greater than local issues, provide technical assistance to local governments, and meet the needs of the communities in each region. That was a lot. And whereas the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council is recognized both statewide and nationally as leaders in regional and resiliency planning and follows the Strategic Regional Policy Plan, which is a guiding document providing regional goals and policies for 5 subject areas required by Florida statute, which include economic development, emergency preparedness, natural resources, regional transportation, and affordable housing. Now therefore I, Andy Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby recognize the 60th anniversary of the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council and their significant and excellent contributions to the quality of life for the citizens of Temple Terrace. So James, would you like to tell everybody a little bit about your duties on the...
Well, there are over 35 municipalities, counties, 5 counties in the Tampa Bay Regional, 35 entities, plus 7 governor appointees to this group. So it's quite large, but we get a lot of stuff done. And an example of all the different plannings and stuff, the concentration lately has been on resiliency. And today was the first of a 2-day summit in Clearwater. I left there. Tonight's their 60th anniversary jubilee, which I have a free ticket to, so if anybody wants to get there before 7 o'clock, you can go in. And I'll be there all day tomorrow. But today we learned a lot about climate change. That was the focus of this summit. What's good to hear, a lot of municipalities are talking about the same thing we did in goal setting. They talked about stormwater projects. They talked about solar. They talked about electric vehicles, charging stations, a lot of things to help our environment, and that was the focus. Tomorrow we'll be talking more about affordable housing, but those are the different issues. They're very powerful. They also do a thing every year. We did not apply this year for it, but the Future of the Region Awards, our cities won that different times for different projects we've done to be recognized in the region. So that's another thing that group does.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Chambers, and thank you for your service on this. I might add that the meetings for this, if I'm not mistaken, are almost always in Clearwater.
No, they are in Clearwater.
They are in Clearwater, and so Mr. Chambers gets the distinction of driving to Clearwater at least once a month, for which he expresses his frustration to me quite often. So
Oh, come on, you have that cute car.
Thank you.
Lori's up here, okay? Okay. We gotta get in the middle, though. Here, let's do it this way, so. Good. Thank you for doing this, James. And prior to our next item, which is a presentation, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce everybody to a gentleman who is new to our city. Ken, would you like to come up? Sure. Thank you, Mr. So, Mr. Ken Lawson is the newly appointed CEO of the Uptown Chamber of Commerce. And so he and I have had an opportunity to already meet, and what turned into a brief meeting turned into a much longer meeting as we very quickly started discussing all kinds of ideas for collaboration and things that we could do in the future. So this is Mr. Ken Lawson, for those of you who may not have met him. Ken, would you like to say hello?
I say hello and say thank you because of your leadership and the city's commitment. We're here as a chamber to serve our community. And I'm just very grateful to have one moment to say hello and show my desire to serve our community through the chamber. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank
All right,
you,
sir.
Ken. Welcome.
All right.
Welcome aboard. So next we have a presentation from the NAM Motorcycles Club regarding a canine memorial. So welcome. Mr. Travis Wright is here to present. And Travis and I, for full disclosure here, worked together for many years and at the sheriff's office. So welcome, Travis. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, sir. Can we get the
There you go.
PowerPoint up? Oh, there we go. All right. Well, again, my name's Travis Wright. I'm the president of the Non-Knights of America Motorcycle Clubs of West Side Chapter. So I'd like to thank you all for allowing us to be here to share this with you. Before I get into actually the memorial, I thought it was important to give you all a little background about the club so you know where we're coming from. The Nam Knights started back in 1989 in New Jersey. So what happened was this Vietnam vets and former law enforcement officers got together and wanted to start a club to kind of rekindle that relationship they had in the military and continue that sense of honor and dedication and give back to the community. So, since that time, it has spread throughout the country into Canada, and we now have 77 chapters across the United States and Canada again. And each one of those chapters kind of finds something in their community that they like to focus on. And, so we do our own thing, and someone who else lives in their certain area or different state, they find something and go after it. So, again, we are the West Side Chapter. If you look at the photograph up there, that's probably one of the only mobile pieces of World Trade Center steel that we're the custodians of. And so we take that out to various events and stuff just to keep that memory alive. Some of the prior stuff that we've done over the years, we started this about 6 years ago, and we do a quarterly law enforcement luncheon for agencies throughout the county and the city, and we provide lunch to the patrol officers and deputies that are working the street. So we do that once a quarter, and I believe Temple Terrace is up there, probably your upper left-hand corner. So. For the last quite a few years, we've been doing the Pig Roast fundraiser. Historically, we've used this as a fundraiser for most of our major contributors, like the Special Operations Warrior Fund, which they provide scholarships to children of Special Operations veterans, that were not veterans, but Special Operations operators that were killed in the line of duty. They provide scholarships for them. We've also provided money for the Lynn Sowers Foundation, which is a Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office foundation for helping deputies in need. And there's quite a few more that we provide funds for. But for the last few years, we've been raising money for the Canine Memorial. So we just had ours last Saturday. Unfortunately, to the rain, we didn't have quite the same attendance as we usually do. But the proceeds from that are going directly for this memorial. This is one of the prior things we were involved in. Long story short, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office contacted us with a veteran that served in Afghanistan. His motorcycle was stolen. So they asked us if we could help them out. Basically, they just wanted to get us running again for him. He's a single father, and we ended up, if you look at what it looked like on the left-hand side to what we ended up giving him back on the right-hand side. So it was pretty awesome event. This is kind of chokes me up to talk about it, but this is Master Sergeant George Harris. He's a retired Air Force veteran. I met him through work and kind of befriended him not to talk a whole lot about it, but he come to find out he was kind of living in plain sight in front of his own house in his truck. He was dying of cancer, and he had no power in his house, he had no water, and he was a hoarder. So just to show you some of the pictures that we did, we basically came in and rebuilt his house in about 2 months, just through donations and, doing manual labor. Moving on, some of the other stuff we've done multiple charity events for law enforcement and military veterans that are suffering from cancer and other accidents, and we provide money for them. We've done, if it has to do with anything moving folks, helping out landscaping, that's pretty much our wheelhouse, and that's what we do. So moving on to the Canine Memorial, we're always trying to look for something bigger and better, and we kind of scoured the county and the surrounding counties and cities looking at the memorials and things that are around, and there really wasn't anything to address the canines that about everybody around here has. All departments use them for various things, so we decided that we would try to spearhead this canine memorial. So what you're looking at there is kind of the proposed front image of what's going to be on the memorial itself. And I won't bore you and read it to you, but it kind of says it all. So moving on here, this is probably your front parking lot. This is kind of what the memorial is going to look like. To this date, we've raised about $30,000 to cover the expenses for the memorial. We've purchased about everything that needs to be done for it. And so that's kind of a little simple sketch of what it looks like. And this is the dog itself. This is what we've been really working on. We actually hired a company in Sanford, American Bronze Foundry, and after a lengthy discussion of what we wanted the dog to look like, they sculpted a dog and furnished this beautiful sculpture here. It's made out of bronze. So this is kind of a rudimentary what it's going to look like on your right-hand side. And that's some of on the left-hand side, the brickwork. So if you've been to Vets Park on 301, they have memorial bricks around, and it'll have the dog's name, the department that it worked for, and the end of watch date. And if it was an actual killed in the line of duty death, it'll have a gold star on the brick to signify that. To date right now, I have about 34 dogs' names that will be placed at the base of the memorial right now. That obviously doesn't include them all. But, just trying to collect that data from different agencies has been kind of time consuming, but we have plenty of room to add more as it goes on. So that's pretty much in a nutshell that, to cover the memorial. We're almost there. So it's been, we've been working on this for, about 3 years now. And between all the shutdowns and COVID and all that stuff, it really kind of threw us for a loop, but we're back, running all cylinders. So that's about it.
Thank you, Travis. So, Dr. Spina, my understanding is this is just basically for information purposes tonight to kind of gauge the council's interest in continuing with this project. And if we do want to continue, then we would have a resolution before us in the future, in the near future. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Do we have a location?
It's, yes.
It's outside in the rear parking lot, the corner, when you come in off 113th, I think it is, and where it's kind of been cleared, that area's been cleared.
Okay.
Yeah, where the cones are around it, you've seen them doing work. That's the work that they're clearing
Okay.
right? Councilmember Abel.
Question, is this the right time for questions?
I think, under the circumstances, yeah.
Okay. I was wondering what costs for the city are associated with this project.
We have gotten cost, our share would be finishing off some sidewalk and curbing around it, and depending on the extent we do that, it would be $4,000 to $7,000. We'll be putting in a handicap access sidewalk that connects to the end of the parking lot with a rail, and then redo the curbing.
So right now, it's not handicap access at that sidewalk, correct?
Right, correct.
All right,
Yeah, there wasn't any reason for anybody to go there. It was just like a landscape island,
Yeah,
so.
kind of,
yeah.
and I think it ends kind of abruptly
Yeah.
where the dirt has been cleared.
right.
So
Okay.
it'll go all the way to the driveway into the parking lot.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Council membership, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Schiffler.
This will cover service animals from the whole area, or just?
Yes, sir. Yes,
whole
that was the,
region?
the idea behind it is, I coined it the Regional Law Enforcement Canine Memorial. So, I've actually got a dog on there from Boca Raton. So, yeah, that's the idea. Yes,
I
sir.
thought, okay, good. I like it.
Travis, these are not all working dogs who were killed in action, though.
No, sir, I'm sorry if I missed that. The intent was to recognize the dogs, even though they've worked and since retired, is to still recognize their service. And the end of watch date you'd see was actually their date of passing. But if it was in a line of duty death, that's when the gold star would signify that end of watch. So, and unfortunately, we've had a few around, so.
Council, don't need a formal vote here. We'll get an opportunity to do that later,
like
but we don't want to waste everybody's time if we're not interested, so.
I like it.
We're good?
Yeah.
Everybody's good?
And just one final note, it would be a gift to the city, so we'll take care of it, and it'll be on our insurance and monitored that way, so.
Okay, very good. So who would the public contact for bricks, Travis?
I would think we would stay involved in that. The company that I'm using is in St. Petersburg, and it costs about $20 to inscribe one brick. We've already paid for all the bricks that are there. So they will cover the surrounding footprint right now. So the company's gonna hold back about 100 of them, and then we'll just kind of rotate through those as we add to it. And trying to think of like in the future, it would probably, just for a money saver, is the company would prefer to do bricks in groups. So, instead of just one. Now, if it happened to be like an in the line of duty death, we'd obviously do it right away. But if we did it quarterly or semi-annually or something, so we could replace like 10 or 20 at one time.
So you're gonna have some inscribed at the initial,
Yes, sir. Yes, so there will be like 34 to originally set amongst the blank bricks. And then we will just add to them as they go, throughout the years and lifetime of it.
is there an opportunity for Temple Terrace residents to get in on the bricks for the initial construction still?
I think we've got pretty much that covered right now, cost-wise. And, it's only if it's less than $1,000 at this point. But in the future, it's probably going to take some, we're going to have to take some money to keep adding to it, so it's.
No, but what I'm getting at is if somebody came up to you right now and said, I want to buy bricks before you build it, is there an opportunity for that, or?
Something we can figure out, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll take their money, yes.
Somehow I kind of suspected that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for coming, and I know you're probably going to leave. Don't feel odd. It happens all the time. Make a presentation and leave. We understand. So
Thank you
thank
all
you
for
so
your
much
time.
for your
Really
time.
appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item of business is an appointment for a regular member to the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. There is one vacancy on the Code Enforcement Board for a regular member for a term that extends from tonight until April 5th, 2025. The city received one application from Mr. Bill Snelling, who I see is in attendance. Mr. Snelling is a current member whose term has expired, and he's eligible to reapply. Mr. Snelling, would you like to say anything? You're welcome. Good evening, sir. You want to buy a brick?
So I don't need to say my name and address, right?
No, you don't.
Okay, so anyway, good evening, Mayor, council members, and the city staff. Just for the record, I've as Mayor Ross said, I think I've been on the board now for around 5 years. The first year was as an alternate, and then the next 4 have been as a regular member. So I think I've tried to do my best to contribute to findings that are good for the city and for the citizens also. So basically, I'm just here tonight to ask for your approval of a reappointment for another 3 years. And thanks for your consideration.
Very good. Thank you for your service, Mr. Snelling. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the appointment of Bill Snelling.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Again, thank you, Mr. Snelling, for your service. The next item is an appointment of an alternate member for the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. The city has one vacancy for an alternate member, and the city received, again, one application from Gina DeAngelo. I do see Ms. DeAngelo is here. Would you like to say a few words? Sure. It's optional. Although Mr. Snelling kind of set the standard, though.
I like to get involved in the community, and I feel that it is important to keep our neighborhoods nice and clean and neat. I have been the recipient of those little, tags on the door, and I have to say that they've always been very cooperative, or as long as I'm cooperative. Gave me extensions when I needed them, and they were really good. I don't know whether mine went before the whole board or what, but my dealings with Lori were great, and something I just feel I can help continue that. So
Thank you.
that's right.
Thank you, Ms. DeAngelo.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your offer for your assistance, too. So this term, ladies and gentlemen, goes from April 5th tonight until April 5th, 2025. Also, is there a motion?
Move to approve Gina D'Angelo for the alternate position on the Code Enforcement Board.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Thank you for your service. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of the March 15th meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there corrections or adjustments to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Corrections, minutes are approved. Next is items, trying to read 2 things at once. That's always iffy. I'm challenged by writing 1 thing at once. Right? Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. We have a 3-minute time limit for all comments from the public. We do ask that speakers come to the podium and state their name and city of residence. During public comment on items not on the agenda, we do like to assure the public that we are listening. The city manager is listening, the elected officials, the directors in attendance, and we do take your comments seriously, and we follow up on them. So I currently, and there are forms on the back table in the back of the room if you wish to speak at this point. I currently have 1 request to speak at this time from Sean Hall. And Mr. Hall, please approach. But before you start, let's make sure we get everything set up for you so that we don't waste any of your time. My understanding is that you are speaking for yourself, Aaron Hall, Jeannie Hall, Alex Guzman,
And Lena Guzman, yes.
and Lena Guzman.
And also for several of residents of Raintree Terrace who could not make it this evening.
Okay, and that, according to the clerk's calculations, gives you 7 minutes. Is that that's according to our rules? Timer is set for 7 minutes, so we don't cheat you out of any time. All right, so just begin with your name, that's all.
Thank you. My name is Sean Hall. I am a resident of Tipple Terrace. I live at 12904 Rainforest Street. And one of the reasons I want to come here today is to talk about the easement that is currently being exercised in our neighborhood. In order to talk about the easement, I would like to tie together several aspects of the mission statement of our city. Amongst those aspects is the question, why do we do it and for whom? The second aspect that I want to cover is our city vision, which is, I quote, "Our vision for the future is simple and precise, to serve our community with excellence." The third aspect that I also want to cover in regards to the easement is the core values: responsiveness, excellence, safety, professionalism, ethical, consistency, transparency. When these are all taken together, this is the mnemonic of respect. This was the core value that was written in the 2014 strategic plan of the city of Temple Terrace. I bring forward that these three aspects will be violated with the exercising of the easement in my neighborhood. The easement will affect the houses of 12902 Rainforest through 12918 Rainforest, which is going to be the western side of Rainforest between 130th Avenue and the ending cul-de-sac. It has to do with with the cleaning of a lake and subsequent drainage ditch, or dredging of a drainage ditch. This easement is going to destroy the property values of our neighborhood. This easement is going to vastly affect the quality of life for every single citizen on the property lines. If you're not familiar, what you are doing is you are coming within 10 more feet than currently is there. Now, I do want to be very clear. I am not arguing the legality of this easement. What I am arguing is the effect you are going to have on the community. When I moved into my house 22 years ago, the fencing lines for my property were already present. The fencing lines of my property went into the community lands behind my house to a ditch that is going to be now dredged. I do not live on the lake. The majority of the houses you are affecting do not live on this lake. However, you are coming into the land of our houses by 10, somewhere 15 feet, and offering to put up a 6-foot chain link fence. You cannot tell me this is the best solution that the city manager, the city engineer, or the city council can come up with to protect our quality of life. You, 30 years ago, abandoned stewardship of the land. That lake has been extremely, let's say, filled with algae and dirty for over 30 years. Not once did anyone do anything about it. As a matter of fact, neighbors privately hired lake doctors to clean it. Nothing from any of you. Mayor Ross, you were 2016 elected. You have fantastic services before the promotion of city council and water management. This was in your wheelhouse. Nothing. Sherry Donahue, 2 years prior, you have served on the city council. Nothing. You have a great record of volunteering and fundraising, including the beer festival you did. But not once did you turn your attention to this lake and this ditch to help clean up our land. You guys ignored the problem and left it to the private citizens to solve. And now you want to take back the land and make us suffer through property values and quality of life. Again, I say it, you cannot tell me this is the best solution that you can come up with. So I implore you to stop this project. Let us work together as a community and come up with a better concept that is going to, number one, protect our quality of life in our properties, which many of us have spent thousands of dollars, including several of us being first-time homeowners when, for example, when I bought 20 years ago. We also need to protect the property values of our neighborhood. This cannot be done in the current iteration of what you move forward with. So I humbly ask you to pause this project, sit down with us as a community, reaffirm your commitment to us, be the city of excellence that you put forth in your mission statement, and let us work as a community to solve this issue of water management while maintaining our quality of life. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I don't currently have any other requests to speak at this time. So that moves us to our consent agenda, which contains a resolution approving the sale of the city's 12 streetlight systems along 127th Avenue from Morris Bridge Road to Telecom Parkway to the Tampa Electric Company. City manager?
Yes, thank you. Staff recommends that the council adopt a resolution approving the sale of a 12 streetlight system, as you said, located along 127th Avenue in the amount of $24,582.99. The 12 streetlight system will be added to the existing TECO streetlight service system for the monthly charge of $594.23.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Consent agenda is adopted. Excuse me. Next item is a resolution authorizing an emergency purchase for tree removal at the golf course. Dr. Spina?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm recommending that City Council adopt a resolution approving an emergency purchase of $44,500 for the removal of approximately 120, actually, I think it's 124 trees located at the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club golf course. This has been an ongoing issue since at least August that I'm aware of. And the Golf and Country Club received 3 estimates on the cost of removal of the trees and accepted the lowest estimate of $44,500. The 3 estimates are included in your packet for your information. The city arborist estimates replacing the trees will cost about $12,000. Council approval to use the tree and landscape beautification funds for the removal is required. Because this is over the city's $25,000 limit on obtaining estimates or quotes, this purchase would normally require a bid process. The purchasing manual does provide for emergency purchases to suspend usual purchasing guidelines in cases of dangers or threat to public health, safety, and welfare. I believe that the emergency purchase is valid because of the conditions of the trees, and we do have some pictures showing some of them. They're in danger of losing branches or limbs, of falling over, causing possible harm to individuals on the golf course and along public streets. And with storm time coming and cold fronts traveling through the region, they are in danger of being knocked over. So I recommend that removing the trees will decrease the possibility of danger to the public. And that's my recommendation.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Spina. I have one request for public comment on this so far from Mr. Jack Ritter. Mr. Ritter, welcome. Evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff. When do we stop holding hands with the golf course and feeding their ever want list? We just gave them over $500,000 to redo the irrigation system, which was purported by the club to have been put in the 1950s. It was actually put in the 60s and paid for by the club membership. I know because my in-laws lived on the second hole of the golf course. We just gave them, and it wasn't approved by you folks, $57,000 to haul away all of the tree debris from the previous cutting. Now we want to give them $42,000 more? Why? What does the club do for the rest of us when we spend city money? My comment is, what you need to do is add this to the bill that the club already owes the city and collect it down the line. This has got to stop. The club's got to be self-sufficient, or we, the city, take it over and run it as a public course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none. Council member questions? Councilmember Abel.
I had a question for council about what responsibility the Golf and Country Club has for maintenance of the golf course and the trees that are on it. Sorry.
Please tell me that's not the lease.
It's a tome, yeah.
A lot of it is. So, is that what you're wanting to know now?
It is, yes.
There has been several amendments to the lease throughout the years, but I did find.
Oh, your mic.
Microphone.
Throughout the years, the city has entered into several amendments to the lease, some dealing with very narrow subjects, some a little bit larger. But in the January 1997 lease agreement, which may have been the original, it has a paragraph regarding the maintenance and repairs. It does not specifically address trees, but it does state that the golf course, the country club, at its own cost and expense throughout the lease term, maintain the premises in a safe, clean, and sanitary condition, free from infestation and any unreasonable accumulation of trash or refuse, subject to conditions beyond its control, such as weather, floods, drought, and other acts of God. Lessee, which is the country club, shall keep in good repair the interior and exterior of all buildings now or hereafter upon the premises. And I'm going to skip to another portion. Lessee may lay out and maintain the golf course, cut turf, cut down or root up trees in accordance with city ordinances, and maintain hedges or bushes upon the premises. That was all that I could find in any of the versions of the lease that came close to talking about any type of vegetation. I can say that in 2015, the topic did come up at a council meeting, and a council member, Rimby, did talk extensively about trees and about the maintenance of trees, and requested at that time that a section be added to an amendment that I think was being contemplated at the time, to several amendments that were being contemplated to the lease at that time. However, that was in March of 2015 when the next iteration of the lease came out in September of that year. His request was not added to the lease. So, and he did talk about the preservation, the Trees for Preservation Society, but specifically mentioned that it was not clear as to who should be planting trees. He mentioned that there were a lot of old trees on the golf course, but not very many new trees on the golf course, and so he was asking that something be added. It didn't happen.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, council member. Other questions, council members?
I have a question.
Councilmember Donahue.
My question would be why we feel that we need to do this without bids. I mean, is this something that is imminent? I mean, I know they've looked this way, especially that one forest of dead trees right there on Bullard Parkway.
Right, Glen
Yeah.
Irvin.
Yeah, that's probably the most obvious. So,
Yeah, I think they should either be, done as an emergency or rebid. I think that would be, I gave you that option of rebidding it to conform to city, to better conform to city policy.
yeah, I would like to see, I can understand us replanting all of them, but I would like to see if we could get a better bid than $44,500. That's a lot of money. And then make a decision at that point.
You mind if I ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure, absolutely.
So how long would that process take, Dr. Spinnen, approximately, to go out for city bids? Because these bids were obtained by the country club, correct?
I would say we'd advertise probably 6 weeks at least, maybe longer, would you say?
So the only point that I would make to that is, I'm not opposed to your idea, but I think before we give that direction, we need to, as a body, first decide whether this is something that we agree to pay for. There'd be no point in giving the direction to go out to obtain quotes if we don't plan to do this anyway.
Right.
So that's probably, let's first decide that, and then decide, I think, the next thing would be how to do it, so. Vice Mayor Schisler.
Yes, I think it's something that we need to do. If 124 dead trees is not something that the club did, this is just natural laurel oaks that have lived past their life cycle. Drought issues, drought conditions down there that weren't rectified in time by the irrigation system. And I'm more concerned with the safety issue at this point. So every time we have a bad storm, you can drive down anywhere on these roads, you got big limbs laying on the side, on the ground. We're having, some unusual winds, and it's going to cost us a heck of a lot more money if somebody gets hurt. If a tree falls in front of a car or on a car, or somebody playing down there, or a student from Florida College, or anybody else. I recognize the fact that the golf course maintains the property. They're the lessee. But we own the property. And if somebody gets hurt, you know as well as I do, they're going to sue everybody around. They're going to sue us. They're going to sue the golf course. And they're going to go to the deepest pockets. And the liability far outweighs the $44,000 that it's going to be to rectify this part of the situation. And this is why this came up as far as our tree beautification initiative, or modifying the tree beautification initiative 6 weeks or 2 months ago or whatever, was with this type of situation in mind. And I think it's something that we need to do. I too worry about the procurement, the purchasing modification, for lack of a better word. But we do have the conduit of claiming that it being an emergency type situation, which allows us to do this. I don't think we're going to get a better bid or a better quote by going out. It just dots I's and crosses T's, to your point. But I think that we're going to get the same type of bid from these individuals. Luckily, the course had just already done the work and had done that step for us. And had we talked to the vendors to see if there was any change to the bid process or to their quote?
No, I haven't talked to anyone.
Okay. Maybe we could put a caveat to that, but I think it's something that we need to do. I understand the concern with it, but I think we need to do it and get it done before we have a real sad problem.
Let me just qualify.
Yeah.
I want to make sure. You did have, the club went out for bids. Is that correct? The club went out for bids.
Yes, the club got
Okay,
bids on it.
okay,
It's
so
just-
they
these are
have
not
three
numbers,
bids.
no.
Okay,
These are-
Yeah, all right.
let's try to remember
Okay.
that we're in question
Yes.
mode
Yes.
at this
So-
point.
So-
We're going to get to the discussion mode
Okay,
later.
so that's one question.
Yeah.
And the second question is, this is coming from that fund that we just said.
Correct.
Yes, so, okay, I will not say anything else, because
Those
it
are
wouldn't be a question, it would be a statement.
Are there, Councilmember Chambers?
Question. Since this is coming from the tree fund, and we modified that ordinance, and I saw in the backup information about $12,000 to replant trees, does that have to be part of any motion or anything? Because was part of the ordinance that we would replant trees taken out.
It could be part of the motion. I mean, it's up to the motion
At
maker.
some point, we will hear that, though, right?
Yes.
Because we have to by ordinance.
It could be part of the motion. There's a lot of options here of what could be in the motions.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a couple questions. Let me start with the ones for Mr. Music. Mr. Music, you mind approaching? Thank you for everybody. This is Jim Music, General Manager of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club. Welcome. Good evening, sir. Thanks for being here tonight.
Council members, staff.
Thank you. So, the trees, I mean, this golf course is 180 acres, give or take. There's a lot of trees, and so this is an ongoing, I get that. Trees grow, they die, they fall, they need to be replanted. Maintenance is required for trees. The last major tree project that we did was a joint venture between the club and the city. We both had, you spent a lot of money getting the tree work done, and we spent a lot of money hauling away the debris. It was a kind of a partnership.
Correct.
This one's different because there's no partnership in this. This is all coming from the city. Is the club, help me to understand that piece, because I think there's some legitimate questions from the community about that.
Sure. Let me just answer a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think that the staff or the council asked.
Okay,
We have confirmed with the selected or proposed bidder the scope of work after Mr. Ferris came and looked at all the trees. So the bid is solid for what we've got. I think if you rebid this project with the fuel prices that are today compared to what they were when we bid this job, you're not going to get the same price. Just my opinion. Secondly, I don't think anybody really understands the relationship between the city and the club, that when you have Brewfest or when you have these city events, July 4th, on the golf course, that it's a partnership between the two. It's not just strictly a golf course all the time. I live on the 15th hole. I can tell you every night I see people walking their dogs on the golf course, children playing in the bunkers at night on the golf course. I don't think that's something that you want us to stop as a good neighbor to the community. And I respect what Mr. Ritter's saying about when's the golf course going to stand on its own 2 feet. I think we're a community partner. When we have Brewfest, when we have July 4th, when we have Christmas on the Green, when all these things are a good synergy between both entities. So we all want to keep that going, I'm sure. The reason the trees are in such poor shape right now is the laurel oaks, as your arborist has indicated, have outlived their life expectancy. And I think Mr. Schisler was exactly correct. Whether it's whether a limb falls on a golfer or Mr. Corbin walking his dog, we're all going to be in trouble. And it happens every day. I mean, Joe was a witness out there when a limb the size of your waist fell on the 14th hole. He was actually in the cart with our superintendent riding around looking at the dead trees. So I think it's something that's got to be done. As far as the club's stake in this, we're going to lose revenue over it because we've got to close a hole or a portion of a hole during regular golf hours. So our revenue is going to be impacted by this. Chainsaws and cutting up and debris removal and all sorts of that. We're also going to be, we're not asking the city for any assistance in managing the contractor. If you want to do that, we'd be glad to let you take that, but we were going to take the responsibility of the supervision and managing and making sure that they owned up to the bid that they've submitted. I think that's what the club has as the stake in the project. Hope that answers the question.
thank you, Mr. Music. The questions while Mr. Music is up? So if you would, don't go too far, because I have, if it's all right, I have some more questions for. Joe, would you mind stepping up? This is our city arborist, everybody. This is Joe Ferris. So, Mr. Ferris, the replanting phase of this, would the trees that are replanted be in, usually, they're not always in the same location. They can be in other places too.
Yes.
So $15,000 is your estimate?
I think it was around 12,000. That was based.
12, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you're
that
right.
was based on a rough plan that I did for our previous city manager a couple years ago. Asked me to ride around the golf course, look at the areas in the rough where we could plant and come up with a list of a different variety of trees.
Okay, so here's my question, and I'm not sure which one of you are best positioned to answer this, but how's the replanting plan from the last tree project, which was a pretty aggressive project on the golf course? How's that replanting plan going? Have we replanted anything from the last time we,
27 trees to date at our
20
expense.
27?
Yes, it's pine trees, magnolia trees, and fruit trees.
Okay. And about how many are left on that list? I mean, about how many do you plan to plant?
Well, I mean, I think the rule of thumb here was us. We're going to continue replacing what we think is indigenous tree to the golf course, which is pine trees. So we're going to continue that effort as long as I'm here. I mean,
Right.
that's the plan, especially with Mr. Ferris's help. I think he has some other recommendations which we totally support. As long as we don't get back into the problem with the canopies being so large that it casts a large shadow on the fairways of the greens, which prohibits growth of Bermuda grass. And I think Mr. Ferris has acknowledged that and is going to work with us in that regard to put back the proper tree that should be there.
So let me ask you this, and you may or may not be able to answer this. This is probably going to have to go to your board. But assume for a second that this council approved this tree removal project tonight, but held off on the 12,000 replacement thing and kept that separate. Do you think the club would be in a position, because that's not necessarily $12,000 at one chunk.
Correct.
That can be $12,000 spread out over a year.
Or 2 years.
So do you think the club would be willing to commit to the replanting expense if the city took on the removal expense?
You're right, Mayor. That's something that I don't make that decision to spend the club's money. So I would have to take that to the board, which I left the board meeting to come, and I'm going back to the board meeting. So I'll be able to get you that answer pretty quick.
I think part of the heartburn here, at least for me, I get the trees, I get it. We recently, correctly, I think, approved the restrictions on the tree fund in order to be able to use this money for tree removal and replacement on public lands, which include the golf course. And I think that was a wise move. I think that was a very good move. And I give credit to our previous city manager for bringing that idea up. What I wouldn't want to happen, though, is since we did that, now all of a sudden, all the trees on the golf course become the sole responsibility of the city. And I don't want that to be, and I wouldn't want whatever we do tonight to be assumed to be that the city's now taking on all the responsibility for the golf course trees, because I don't think that's our intent.
And I don't think that's the club's intent, Mayor. No, sir. This is something that I think Mr. Ferris and I and our superintendent have identified that's of an immediate need, because these laurel oaks have just reached the stage to where they're falling apart. I mean, you can look at
Yeah.
the photographs that Mr. Spina put up, and it's something that's got to be taken care of.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, I know I'm wearing out my welcome, but if you'll indulge me just a little bit more. Legally speaking, now I know that this arrangement we have with the country club is much different than a home where a tenant moves in and we are the landlord and they're the tenant. I know it's more involved than that. But if these dead trees were on private property, would they not be subject to a code violation in the state that they're in?
Possibly, because I don't know for sure, and maybe Mr. Ferris knows better than I do because he deals with that topic all the time. If we have an ordinance that states that a person, an owner of property, must remove dead trees on their property, then they would be in violation. I don't know if we have that ordinance or how it's worded, but we would not be removing the trees on somebody's private property.
No. What I'm getting at, though, is if we did cite somebody for this violation, and we do have an ordinance that they have to, if we did cite somebody, the notice of violation would go to the owner of the property, not the tenant.
Go to us.
Right.
Yes.
So in theory, we would be, in this situation, citing ourselves for having these trees.
Correct.
That's not good. Right? And I agree with, do you have any disagreement with what Mr. Schistler said about the liability chain? If these trees fall on somebody, lease or no lease, we're the landowner, correct?
Correct.
We can't excuse ourselves from this liability loop.
No, we could only go to then our lease and tell the country club that they must indemnify us because we do have indemnification provisions in the lease.
Okay. So, council, I'm sorry for taking up so much time. I'm done. We can do a number of things here. We can deny the whole thing, if you choose. We can authorize the expenditure under an emergency order, which I think would qualify according to what we're being told by staff, because there is an immediately dangerous situation. We could direct staff to go back out to obtain city quotes. I'm not sure that'd be a smart idea, but we could. And we can either include or save the tree replacement for a future time, or we can include it into the motion. So we have several options here.
I have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right, a procedural question that Mr. Music brought up. Can the city write the purchase order and have the club manage it, or does the city have to manage the project?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I think we could maybe assign them to it as the property owner.
I know he brought it up. I would think the city would manage it, but
I'm sure we'd be available to manage it and part of it, but I'm not sure on the legalities of that.
okay, but we'd have to work that out.
Yes.
And Mr. Music, if the city would have to manage it because of statutory or whatever, you would be good with that?
Sure.
Okay.
We work hand in hand with Mr. Ferris since I've been here.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect him to be there on a daily basis, but, I mean, that's kind of what we're watching out for. But if you say you don't want us to get involved, then from the legal standpoint, then we'll step aside. Sure.
Okay, I just didn't want anything to be assumed tonight.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, to Mr. Chambers' point, we essentially did that with the irrigation project. We assigned the club management and so forth, and the other company, they managed that project. We didn't really manage, but unless, correct me if I'm wrong, we really didn't
we
manage
bought
the
the
day-to-day.
materials.
Pardon me?
We bought the
We bought the materials, but
and
we
they-
didn't supervise we didn't
Correct.
supervise the installation or anything like that. So, but, yeah, we did buy the materials, but they did the project, and they managed the project. We didn't, we stayed out of that portion of it, we as a city.
But this scenario is a little different because they managed, they hired the contractor, we just bought the materials. In this case, we would be, we're paying it. I think we should have an obligation to make sure that the city gets the work that it's paying
Well, I
for.
think Mr. Ferris will be working with them the whole time.
Yep, Mr. Music, you might want to step up so I don't think they can hear you and get you on this.
To confirm what Mr. Schistler said and Mr. Chambers, yes, you bought the material, but we were the custodian of the material.
Correct.
And we took care of all that. We inventoried the material. As a matter of fact, we returned over $8,000 back to the city of unused material of that irrigation material that was purchased by the city. So you, in essence, you did let us manage the not the procurement, but the inventory control of all the irrigation material that you purchased. And then we gave you back, as I said, when the project was over, around $8,000. So it's not that we haven't done this together before.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council, unless there are burning questions, I think we probably ought to try to move on if there's somebody who's prepared to make a motion.
Prepared.
Well, I don't know who was
Go
first.
ahead, I don't care. No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Councilmember
I'm
Donovan.
prepared to approve a resolution authorizing an emergency purchase for tree removal at the golf course for all the reasons stated above, which is that this is not private property. This is our property.
Stick with the motion,
Yes.
don't justify
So,
it in the motion.
okay, I won't justify it until after someone seconds it, and then I will.
Okay, so your motion
My
is
motion,
to
yes.
approve,
Strictly authorizing an emergency purchase for tree removal at the golf course.
A motion, do we have a
Second.
second? A motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Councilmember
At some
Chambers.
point, I said that the second part of our obligation is to replant trees, part of our tree ordinance. So I don't know how we want to deal with that at a later date, but just to be in the record that somewhere, it doesn't say we have to put them back on the golf course, we just have to replant.
Well, a couple things on that is, one, it's included in our ordinance already. It's not necessarily part of the motion, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be because it's already implied in our ordinance. And two is, we might want to hold that in reserve to make that decision at a later. I don't want to speak for you, you made the
No,
motion.
no, I want the motion to be simple, and we can discuss the other portion at another time, so that this can happen
That-
quickly.
Is that satisfactory
Yes.
for now? Okay. Other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Mr. Music, I know I said this, I just want, and I can only speak for me on this. I don't want this to be seen as a assumption that the trees are now all the city's responsibility now that we've unlocked this,
Yes, sir.
right? And now, I don't want that assumption being made. This is tonight.
Totally understand.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Next item on the agenda is a resolution, and thank you, guys, by the way. Resolution approving the addendum to the agreement between the city and Imagine That Performance LLC. Dr. Spina?
Yes, sir. It's recommended the city council adopt a resolution approving an addendum to the agreement between the city and Imagine That Performance LLC for the provision of interim city manager services and transition services. Rob Duncan with Imagine That Performance is proposing an addendum to the agreement that will withdraw the fixed charge bill to the city as originally approved and provide for a hourly rate on an as-needed basis at $125 an hour. And what has transpired basically is, as I've settled into the job, it became apparent that we didn't need what was initially offered at the beginning of the contract in February. And so he recommended we change this.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Spina. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions. Are there questions for Dr. Spina? Okay, very good. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Thank you very much. Next item is a resolution approving a task work order to Kimley-Horn and Associates for the rehabilitation of the China Berry Pump Station. City Attorney Brian McCarthy. Welcome, Mr. McCarthy.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Engineer versus City Attorney.
Oh,
Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and I'm here this evening seeking approval to award a design task work order to Kimley-Horn and Associates for the rehabilitation of China Berry Pump Station. So on the screen that you can see is the the location of the pump station in red. It's outside the city limits in unincorporated Hillsborough County. So I understand that City Council has approved a lot of lift stations. This will be your first pump station, and they work very similar to lift stations, with the exception of that lift stations are only pumping domestic wastewater versus our China Berry pump station pumps potable water, drinking water to the neighborhoods. So this rehabilitation includes replacing high service pumps, pipes, electrical equipment, and a power generator. And here's kind of a Google shot of the facility. Other improvements will also include a new roof for the building, as well as painting the existing ground storage tank that you can see in the background. So scope of services for Kimley-Horn includes survey, design, permitting, bidding, and construction admin services. With that, staff recommends City Council approve the design task work order to Kimley-Horn and Associates under the existing general professional services agreement for the rehabilitation of the China Berry Pump Station in the amount of $111,152.22 to be provided from account number 430-19 21-533.62-41. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council member questions? Vice Mayor Schistler.
What's the timeline for this? When will it be completed and deliverables?
Design normally takes about a year, so we're hoping then construction should be starting shortly after that.
And how much is it going to be for the full construction anticipated, expected, planned?
Using the lift station as a kind of an example, and I would say even with supply issues at the moment, generally our bid probably goes out for about 6 months is what we ask of the contractor to complete it in. But I know with the St. Augustine Phase 2 project that's ongoing for our water main, they have had some pipe supply issues. So I think, if anything, maybe 7-8 months at most.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because we just got done a long discussion with the potential onslaught of other projects that are coming as a result of ARPA. Will this potentially be impacted by any of that? Not our work, but the ability to get the product and supplies that we need and the company to do the work, given it's going to be, within the next 12 months. That's right in the throes of everything that ARPA is going to be spent on in the area. Do we expect pricing issues or availability issues, or what type of contingencies are we looking at with that? I know it's beyond what this resolution is, but I mean, it's the next step. And how much more is it going to be after that?
I guess it's hard to say just because of supply issues. Even with ARPA going on, I mean, the whole county is going through the same thing. This has just been budgeted with our normal city funds. This isn't part of one of our priority 1 projects for ARPA. So it's difficult to answer that question.
I don't mean to put you on the spot like that, but just so whatever the deliverables are, they're applicable to maybe if it's even 18 months from now. Okay, that we don't have to come back and do this again.
Yes.
If we hit any snags with that. Otherwise, yeah.
So after design, we can always put it on the shelf, and when we're ready to advertise for construction, we can go ahead and do that.
Good. That's a good answer. That's what I was looking for. Thanks.
Questions? Council members, is this an ARPA project or is this a city funded? You said
This would
is a
be city funded.
city funded. This is not an ARPA project. Okay.
It's within the ARPA plan as a lower priority.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you. Next item is a resolution approving a task work order to CPH Inc. for the Maybole Place and North River Hills Drive Stormwater Improvement Project. City engineer Brian McCarthy is here to explain.
All right, good evening again, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and I'm here this evening seeking approval to award a design task work order to CPH Inc. for the Maybole Place and River Hills Drive Stormwater Improvement Project. So in this first overall figure, the red star is the location of the flooding concern, and then the purple lines are going to be the stormwater network. So I have a couple videos. Back in October of 2021, staff went out and took some videos as well as closed the intersection due to the amount of flooding that was occurring. So in this first video, what you're going to see is how fast the runoff is moving and how the inlet doesn't capture all the water that's running off. So it kind of bypasses the inlet and continues on down to the intersection. I was informed about a hand in this video, which is just a reflection, not necessarily a ghost, stopping the water. But here's the first video.
Oh, yeah.
Water's going right by.
I'll let them start direct.
In the second video, you'll see the intersection where it's already started to pond. Staff hadn't closed the road just yet, but the water will continue to rise.
Slowed them down.
So again, this was before we closed down the road, so the water level does get a little higher. And then just a recap of what the overall kind of looks like. The first video kind of showed you how the water was bypassed from the inlet, and that's from the western edge of Maybole Place that you can see on the diagram. So those purple lines, there's a couple of them there where the inlet or the water bypasses it and continues down to the intersection. And then the second video again was just the intersection itself. So again, the scope of services for this project for CPH includes survey. They'll include a stormwater report, design, and construction plans. That said, staff recommends City Council approve a design task work order to CPH Inc. under the existing General Professional Services Agreement for the Maple Place and River Hills Drive Stormwater Improvement Project in the amount of $87,763.24 to be provided from account number 130-1721-541.63-17. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions. This is an ARPA project. This is a priority one ARPA project.
That's correct.
Definitely.
So we would pay for this out of our accounts and then recover money from ARPA? Is that how that works? Or do we pay it directly out of our ARPA money? Okay, we pay it, okay. Good. Council members, other questions? Councilmember Chambers.
In your video of the flooded street, I saw 2 manhole covers. Are they sanitary sewer covers or water?
I know one of them is a stormwater. I'd have to verify what the second manhole was.
Okay, because in one of the presentations today at my seminar, they talked about flooded streets. If the seals aren't good in the manholes for the wastewater, the rainwater goes in and we pay for that to the city of Tampa. So it's important to keep the flooding down on those things. So it's a good project.
Good point.
Very good. Good, thank you. Other questions?
No,
If not, is there a motion?
I move to approve. Second.
Second.
Thank Councilmember Abel beat you. So we have a motion, a second by Councilmember Abel. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Next item is a resolution approving SPR 22-2, which is a site plan review application for the construction of a 7,200 square foot agricultural warehouse facility located at 8601 Harney Road. Senior Planner Gus Karpus is here to explain. Welcome, Mr. Karpus.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Yes, so what you have before you tonight is a resolution approving site plan review plan 22-02. It's an application for the construction of a 7,200 square foot agricultural warehouse facility at 8601 Harney Road. The property is located at the southwest corner of Harney and Davis Road intersections, and it's currently used as a commercial dairy. It's zoned as PD. It's a community mixed use, future land use, and has approximately 66.1 plus or minus acres. The adjacent uses to this property is vacant to the north, vacant agriculture and light industrial to the south. You have the Amazon distribution center to the east, and then to the west you have some single-family residential. So again, the proposal is for the construction of a 7,200 square foot agricultural warehouse facility. There would be no change in the impervious surface area on the lot. The proposal is to remove an equal amount of concrete to the footprint of the proposed structure. The overall building coverage on the lot would increase minimally from 2.9% to 3.5%. And being that this is just a warehouse facility, there's no need to change any type of access onto the site. The building itself would be a metal structure with an overall height of 31 feet. It would be tan in color to match the surrounding structures. The DRC did review the application materials and had no objections. There are no tree mitigation fees attached, and actually there are no applicable mobility fees for this use either. So that's kind of a wrong statement on the bottom. I apologize for that. I did recommend adoption of the resolution to approve the 7,200 square foot agricultural warehouse facility at 8601 Harney Road as depicted on the site plan submitted to the city. I did not see the applicant here, unfortunately, but I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Carpus. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, questions for Mr. Carpus? Councilmember Donahue?
I'm trying to decide, why is this coming before us if everything that he's building is permitted on this property already? What is this, I guess,
Because it's a site plan review, so they're adding a structure to the site.
okay,
So through our ordinance, you do need to review that.
okay. Well, I'm happy to review it, but I mean, I was, like, everything read, the way everything read, it's like, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing it, and explaining it then.
Other questions for Mr. Carpus? Very good. If there are no questions, is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
I'm going to give it to the vice mayor this time. We have a motion,
I can't
second
hear
by
you.
Vice Mayor Schister.
You're so quiet. I
Are
can't
there
hear you.
discussion? I hear her. Is there discussion on the motion?
She's got to get a flag.
No discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Carpus. Next item is a public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1524, adopting Comprehensive Plan Amendment CPA 21-03. I'll open the public hearing, and Senior Planner Gus Carpus will explain.
Yes, once again, good evening. So back in February 15th, 2022, the Hillsborough County Representative presented to the council a comprehensive plan amendment ensuring consistency, a change in our comprehensive plan to ensure consistency with the changes made into the Southwest Florida Water Management District's Regional Water Plan. Since they changed their plan, we have to modify our comprehensive plan to match their changes. So at that time in February, we did approve a first reading. Because it was a standard text amendment, we did need to send it to the DEO for their review. They did review it and granted a approval of the amendment on March 18th. And so now what we're looking at now is for the second and final reading and the adoption of the ordinance approving the comprehensive plan amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Carpus. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, any questions for Mr. Carpus? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the city's comprehensive plan to ensure consistency between the city's Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan and the Southwest Florida Water Management District's Regional Water Supply Plan by amending a portion of the text within the potable water and wastewater section of the public facilities element, and by updating and modifying the 10-year water supply facilities work plan, providing a severability clause, effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1524 as read.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Motion and second by Councilmember Chambers. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Motion passes. Next item is a resolution approving the city's American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 project identification and prioritization report. Public Works Director of Utilities, Troy Tinch, is here to explain. Welcome, Mr. Tinch.
Good evening. Good evening, Your Honorable Mayor, City Council, Troy Tinch, Public Works Utilities Director. I'm here this evening to seek approval of the city's final project identification and prioritization report that will be available for funding through the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. I put together a quick series of slides here, wanted to kind of run through them, give you a little more background on where we've been, where we're going. So obviously this is part of the economic stimulus package that was passed in 2021, $1.9 trillion. The number we need to focus on is 13 million. That is our proposed, or our proportionate share for this project. We had 4 eligible uses under the American Rescue Plan Act. The 2 that we're going to tie into are revenue loss and investment in infrastructure. Those 2 break down to the revenue loss. We're looking to spend approximately $2.1 million. The remaining $11 million focused on investment in infrastructure. You're looking at about $1 million for broadband expansion, and approximately $10 million of that will then go towards utility-related projects. Again, the effort to date, the council was originally provided the draft ARPA plan, or the draft project identification and prioritization report, back in February. We've had an opportunity for citizens to comment on that. Staff, after discussions with city council as well as senior management, executive management, reprioritized and added new projects into that plan. That plan has been finalized. It is attached. You've had an opportunity to review that plan, and now we're seeking approval. So that said, staff recommends approval of the city's project identification and prioritization report, which identifies projects eligible for approximately $13 million in funding available through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. I will stand for questions, if any.
Thank you, Mr. Tinch. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, any questions for Mr. Tinch?
For the listening public, this project plan is on our website in its entirety, as we changed it a little.
Yes, ma'am.
So the new one is there for people to read. It's on the website.
I believe it will. If it's not, it will be.
Okay, well, it must have been there at some point, because
It was. The draft was there
Yeah,
for
okay.
people to comment on, and we did not receive any comments on the plan.
I did. And
Oh, okay.
And the people understood and approved.
Oh, great.
I mean, it's not like 100 people call me, but
Right.
I had a few. So that's why I wanted people to know that it is available. It's not that
Absolutely.
it's some
It will be
plan.
available online. We can also make it available via hard copy if someone would like one.
Good,
It's certainly not a
Good.
problem.
thank you.
Council members, other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the resolution approving the city's American Rescue Plan Act of 2021.
Second.
Yeah, that,
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Tinch.
Thank you.
cliche.
Next item is council business. We do have one item on the agenda under carryover council business, and we have our city attorney, Pam Shoshone, is going to present to us about Hillsborough County's proposed transportation surtax referendum ordinance. Ms. Shoshone?
As you may remember, on November 6, 2018, the electorate of Hillsborough County had approved a citizens' initiative ballot measure that provided for an amendment to the Hillsborough County Charter. It levied a 1% transportation sales surtax. Shortly after that was approved by the voters, County Commissioner White filed a lawsuit alleging that the that the charter amendment was invalid, specifically because of the way the taxes would be distributed. He had stated that his allegation was that it conflicted with state law, and that instead of the distribution that had been approved by the voters, the Board of County Commissioners must decide who should get the money and how much. The circuit court judge in Tampa had made sort of a split decision, and he invalidated a portion of it, but did validate another portion of that. Therefore, it was appealed to the Florida Supreme Court, and ultimately the Florida Supreme Court did determine that the ballot initiative and the amendment as it was laid out was invalid, and therefore the amendment had to be repealed or had to be removed, but it no longer existed. Money had been collected so far. I don't believe that any of the recipients have spent any of it. Temple Terrace was a recipient of some of this surtax money, and we hold on to it today. The local judge recently determined that he was not going to decide how any refund would occur, and is basically leaving that up to the state legislature. The local, the defendants, the parties who were the defendants, which initially included City of Temple Terrace, but we were voluntarily dismissed from the case. However, my statement at hearings in front of the judge was that Temple Terrace would abide by whatever the courts decided. So for all intents and purposes, we are included in most of the discussions with the defendants and their attorneys still. They are proposing a motion right now, again asking the judge to make some determination with regard to what should happen with the money. They're looking at possibly it going back to the clerk and then to the Department of Revenue, and again waiting for the legislature to decide what happens to the money. In the meantime, though, the Board of County Commissioners has proposed, they're going to be hearing this tomorrow, they're going to be considering this tomorrow at their meeting, an ordinance that would again place the transportation surtax measure on the ballot so that the citizens can vote for it or not again. But this time it will be worded correctly. The county was not responsible for the wording last time. As I said, it was a citizen initiative and they made a mistake. So this time the county is taking matters into its hands. And so what council can do tonight, and this is sort of I'm not going to say it's your last chance, but considering that the Board of County Commissioners is considering this ordinance tomorrow, that if you have a comment, a concern, an objection, this would be the time to state that, and I will provide that to the county's attorney. I'll do that tonight after the meeting so that hopefully they'll have it in the morning. But I have provided you last week with a copy of the ordinance that is being proposed and the ballot language that is being proposed. So this, the way it is laid out now, I did have a concern, and Plant City's attorney did have a concern with I guess how set in stone the distribution would be, and that was raised to the county's attorneys, and they have made changes to the ordinance, and so our concerns have been eliminated. The way the ordinance does read currently, 54.5% of the surtax proceeds would be distributed by the clerk to the county and to each municipality in accordance with their relative populations as calculated utilizing the statutory formula provided in Florida Statute Section 218.62. Also, a portion of this money, I believe 45% of the surtax proceeds would be distributed by the clerk to Hart. 27% of the general purpose portion shall be expended to promote transportation safety, and it lays out a number of other distributions for 12%, 5% as to how that money should be spent. Basically, the county is trying to rectify what went wrong before and provide for their reasoning for this is to address the pressing unfunded transportation needs throughout Hillsborough County. And therefore they are proposing to levy, to levy the 1% and put that on the ballot again.
Thank you, Mr. Schoen. So I have a couple questions. So this language in section D, is this still in their proposed ordinance or not?
Section,
This language that any other provision of this article, anyway, the BOCC may modify the distribution of the surtax proceeds provided for in this section prospectively by enacting an ordinance in accordance with applicable law. In other words, they could change this distribution formula in the future. Is that still part of their proposed ordinance?
no, that was what we were complaining about.
That was
and-
struck.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Council member questions, Vice Mayor?
If I made that point, I spoke with the BOCC chair yesterday, and she concurred that that was no longer part of the ordinance.
Yeah. I talked to her as well, and she said once it was recognized, the possibility, that they removed it. So that was good. That was the only thing I had a concern about as well.
I just want to clarify for the public, so that, because I remember how this went a few years ago when this issue came up. So for everybody listening, I want you to understand clearly that this proposed tax is a Board of County Commissioners initiative. This has nothing to do with this city council, other than we're going to have to pay the tax if it passes. But we are not being asked as a city whether we support, oppose, have no feeling. Nobody's asking our opinion on this tax, right? So if you, as a Temple Terrace resident, have a position on this, one way or the other, you should be contacting your county commissioner. We have no power and nobody's asked our opinion, right? I will tell you that the distribution of this tax, if it passes, is what we're talking about. So if this tax passes, we are fighting to make sure that Temple Terrace receives its fair share. And that's what this discussion is about, not whether or not we're in favor or not. I'll also tell you, and this is probably, I don't want to talk negative about a sister city, but I will tell you that Tampa has made a run at getting a higher percentage than what the state statute allows. They wanted a higher percentage than their population distribution, and we fought that. I'm sure Plant City probably did too, and the county backed off on that. They didn't, and they've apparently listened to us on this too. I also want everybody to understand that this Board of County Commissioners, I don't know about history, but on this particular board, these commissioners have been very good to the city of Temple Terrace. In fact, in many cases, they don't just go by the statutory distribution, but they have in fact gone above that and given us more than we're legally entitled to. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that, this is a, here we go, the county's being mean to Temple Terrace or anything. It's not like that, right? So just some clarity. Other questions?
I guess I have a question, Mr. Schischler. Hart is in agreement in favor of all the provisions.
Yes.
I saw the information from the attorney, and he had some very good valid points. I hope they were listened to. Yeah.
Art's in agreement with it.
Okay.
Other questions for Mr. Schoen? Anything else? Good. Is there other council business? Carryover council business?
I have a question about the rain tree discussion. Is that here? Would that would fit here? I never know where those.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want, we heard from the citizen, but I haven't, I know this is coming before us. So when is this coming before us? The next meeting, or
I don't think it is coming
I don't think
before
it
us. This is not anything that comes before us.
this is not?
I have a small, coincidentally, my city manager report has a change order that relates to this project, but it's not on the project itself.
Okay, so it's not coming before us. But I guess what I want people to know is the work you've already done to talk to the citizens And I don't know if you want to address that. I mean, we had one, I don't want to call it a version. We had one opinion, and I guess I want to know, is there anything that we need to tell the listening audience that the city has done to listen to the residents? I mean, I saw a long, involved answer from you earlier.
Okay, so here's what's not gonna happen
Okay.
here, okay?
No, we're not getting into a debate.
No,
here.
we're not,
No.
and that's what I wanna,
No,
all right,
no,
if
no.
we're gonna talk about this, what we're not gonna do is get into a calling our staff up to defend their actions, and then we're gonna have the citizens stand up and
No.
we're not gonna have, we could go on all
I'm not
night.
asking for that.
We could go on all night, we're
I'm
not
not
gonna do
asking for
that. Okay, so what is it you
I
want?
guess what I want to know is, does the city have anything they want to say? Since everyone is listening to this and they've heard one version, they don't know the other side. So is this a moment that we should take, or is this going to be, I mean, that's what I'm asking. Is the city manager feel comfortable doing that, or Mr. Tench? If you want to say no, we're fine. We've talked to all the neighbors. Everybody
Well,
understands.
I think the staff has talked to neighbors and tried to explain the process. My understanding of this project is that it was initiated by a citizen complaining about the poor quality of the pond. And staff went back out there, and they had been told basically maintenance of the stormwater system was the responsibility of the city, and staff went out there to kind of assess it. And they verified that there is an easement there that connects to the stormwater pond. It was originally dedicated to Hillsborough County in 1983, and then transferred to the city when Raintree properties were annexed into the city, I think in 1987. So the department began to implement a plan to maintain the drainage system. They had the area surveyed to identify property boundaries and easement limits. At that time, they started to map the process, and I have to just check my notes to make sure. These efforts included establishing the 10-foot wide maintenance access from Rainforest Street to the stormwater pond. There's an existing drainage easement, and included the installation of a 6-foot tall vinyl fence with gates to allow land access from the street to the pond for city staff. This task also included minor tree and landscape removal within the easement that is on private property that's cut through there. And if I'm incorrect, stop me, okay? Establishment of the 10-foot maintenance access berm was also part of the plan on the eastern limits of the stormwater pond. So at the back of the residential properties, but along the stormwater pond. It'll include a 4-foot tall black vinyl coated chain link fence and allow for continued maintenance of the pond, including nuisance and exotic vegetation treatment and water quality monitoring, as well as future dredging of sediment at the outfall structures. This included the relocation of existing fences at addresses 12910, 12912, 12914, 12916, and 12930 Rainforest Street. They had multiple in-person meetings in the office and on-site with different residents, and responded to written and verbal communications. Staff met with residents individually to mark the location of the new fence, which was established about 8 feet east or homeward towards their existing fence lines. Most residents were hesitant to relinquish a portion of their property. However, as the dialogue progressed, it became clear that it wasn't their property, that it actually had been part of the common property for the retention area. So the reestablishment of the city residential property limits for addresses 12902, 12904, 12906, and 12908 will be accomplished by the installation of a 6-foot tall black vinyl coated fence The property consists of a conservation area of wetlands and lowland hardwoods, which provides a flowway for the adjacent stormwater pond and is in need of maintenance. Although this effort employed the same strategy as the pond fence relocation, regarding meetings and correspondence, these residents were less receptive. It was noticed that all 4 residents have encroached onto the adjacent city-owned parcel, and some of the residents felt that the city was trying to take what they perceived as their property. So there was a disagreement there. The city was just simply trying to reestablish its property boundary at that time. Once the existing fences have been removed and the new maintenance and the new fence installed, maintenance on the stormwater pond will ensue, and it'll include the dredging of spoil deposition areas from the 2 outfalls located at the southeasterly and northeasterly portions of the pond. An aeration system is also being evaluated within the pond to address water quality. The flowway located along the eastern, well, these really don't, the flowway located along the eastern edge of the drainage tract will be cleaned to improve stormwater conveyance. So that basically is a
Thank you.
difference of perception that they went out there to try to rectify and clean the pond and reestablish the easement.
Okay, and so the pond will be cleaned up, and that was the whole goal, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's what I wanted people to hear, was that, and I agree with you, this is not a dialogue, this is not, I'm not asking for that. I just wanted for people to hear all the efforts that had gone into this and why this was being done. So I appreciate that, Dr. Svenna. That's all.
Other council business, carryover council business. Okay, new business and board reports. New business? New business. I have a few things. I'll be quick. I'll try to be quick. I want to introduce you to an idea that I want you to think about. I'm not trying to spring something on you that I'm asking for a decision. This is an important topic, so I want you to maybe consider this, unless you're just going to give me a heck no tonight. I would like to propose that we pass an ordinance that would then be placed on the ballot in November for a charter revision. And the revision would be to give the city council, this body, the powers to confirm city manager's appointment of directors. And there's a couple reasons I'd like to do this. For one, things evolve, they change, right? When the city was passed, but things change. And we've seen this recently, close by, where there's been controversy concerning the mayor or the city manager's appointment of directors, some of them high profile, police chiefs, right, those kinds of things. If we, in our city, under our form of government, if we were faced with that, if, for instance, a city manager were going to appoint a police chief or a finance director, and for whatever reason that person was controversial, and there can be a lot of reasons why somebody's controversial, but for whatever reason that person's going to be controversial, and we got outcry from the community, and they were contacting all of us saying, we don't, this person shouldn't be the police chief, they shouldn't be the finance director, they shouldn't be in that kind of a position, this is crazy. Think about where we are today. Our response to them can only be one thing, right? Not only is it solely within the power of the city manager, but that's one of the few things that we are expressly prohibited from even talking to the city manager about. There's an ordinance that says we can't even call the city manager to try to affect an employment decision. So our only response to our constituents would be that you can talk to the city manager about it, but I can't. That's not a good response, and I think our citizens expect more from us. I'm not trying to change our fundamental form of government. We have a good form of government. But in the charter's attempt to strike a balance of power, I think we've seen that that balance of power, in my opinion, has been off a little bit, and this council has sometimes been left with not enough power. And I'm not trying to increase the power of the mayor, but I'm trying to increase the power of the council over the appointment of directors. And so, I don't know what your initial feelings on that are. I talked to the city attorney. The cost to do this would be just the cost of passing an ordinance, which the advertising, the clerk, the nominal cost of passing the ordinance, but there'd be no expense of putting it on the ballot since there's already an election. So, Councilmember Chambers.
A question of somebody, and being on the Charter Review Committee, I should know, but I don't. Are we allowed to do something like this without a Charter Review Committee recommending it?
Yes, believe so.
I don't know of anything to prevent you from making a change in the charter or putting it on as a referendum, but we have requirements to do a charter review periodically, but it doesn't say that that's the only time that you can change the charter.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Abel.
I know it's been pretty recent, but when was the last charter review that we did?
No, it was what, 2018? Yeah, 18. It was pretty recent.
4 years ago?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. But, you know, things come up, things change. Vice Mayor Schister?
Yeah, having been, I just don't remember where that was under the charter, under the charter dialogue, that we had no say over directors. And
It's
so
an
forth.
ordinance. It's not in the
Well,
charter.
that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. But what I don't remember is being in the charter that we can't enact an ordinance to say that, to do that. Why do we need to go through the charter review? That was my, and I don't know. This is the first I've heard about it, so I haven't had a chance to go back.
There's
and
language in
review.
the charter that,
Okay?
She brings out another
I don't
fat
remember
book.
that. But by doing that, are we violating the basic tenet of the strong city manager form of government? Or is that a morph that could, is that just a general, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use, just a general morph that goes on through time?
it's common in Florida, in our form of government, for councils to have this. It's not, we're not.
I don't have a problem with the concept. I hate to go through a charter review because we promised we'd try to keep those about every 10 years.
Well, this isn't. This is a,
Well, I
this
understand.
is
No,
a
no, I
one
understand.
topic,
I
yeah.
understand. It's a surgical approach. I don't have a problem with it, but if we can do it without going through the charter review, the ordinances make sense to me.
I think because it's in the charter in section 1.04, separation of powers, it says that there shall be a distinct separation of legislative and administrative powers. Except as otherwise herein expressly provided, all legislative powers shall be vested in and exercised by the city council, and all administrative powers shall be vested in and exercised by the city manager. So the hiring and firing is considered an administrative power, so
But I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but are we not more advise and consent as opposed to hiring and firing?
No, I'm proposing that the directors would have to, their appointment would have to be approved by this council if they couldn't be hired. They'd have to be confirmed. Dr.
Are you
Smith?
proposing that all directors or
Yeah,
specific?
yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a discussion for the council to have, but that's my,
Yeah.
you know, otherwise we get into, police chief's more important than the fire chief or the utilities chief, and
Yeah, and I've seen it where typically they do that in fact, where I worked before, they did it for the police chief and the fire chief, but they didn't do it for other directors, so. It depends on, we could do a blast and find out who does what. But it would depend on your level of involvement, I think.
Could you make the fire chief, police chief, finance director charter employees, our employee? Okay, there's an answer. I'm just asking the question. I mean, you are, this is kind of a slipping in, but I understand where you're going.
And all I'm asking
So-
you to do is ask around. I know you guys are all FLC members and so ask around. And envision yourself in a position where there's a proposal. Now, right now, we probably wouldn't even know about it because we don't find out about the hires until they're after the fact anyway.
Since you're not just talking about, you're talking about all directors, it was an issue. It already has been an
It
issue.
has been.
Yeah.
It has been.
And
But
we
we
had-
don't find out about them until it's a
Well-
done deal.
Well, no, we knew,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and protested.
So this is an idea. I mean, this is, this is a council decision. So I'm proposing it be on directors. I mean, you guys can say, no, I don't want it to be on directors. It should be something else. Or no, we shouldn't do it at all, or whatever you decide, you decide. But I don't want to be in the position of being the mayor and having to tell constituents, I can't even talk to the city manager about this. That's not good. And I don't know what the background is of that ordinance that prohibits us from doing that, but, I mean, it's a good intent. It's to keep mayors and council members from trying to get their cousins hired and, oh, I'm mad at that employee, you need to fire them. I mean, I get the intent, but, that balance can go too far the other way, too. Councilmember Abel.
I like the idea, and like you said, I'll ask around. I just want to learn more about it, and I want to read this ordinance that you're talking about that says we can't even talk to the city manager about that kind of thing. So I do appreciate you bringing it up, and I'll do my homework and learn more about it.
I'd like to know what was the background of that ordinance, because in that ordinance, it even implies that you can be convicted of malfeasance for passing an ordinance that revises that ordinance. You can't do that. You can't pass a law that's illegal to amend.
Well, they
I mean, there was so I don't know what was going on, but something was going on. So please think about that and maybe
I just
we'll,
have a question of the city clerk.
Yep.
At what point do we have to notify the supervisor of elections that we're putting something on the ballot?
we have time if we start soon.
Oh, I know we have time now.
It would have to be around the same time. It would have to be around the same time as when we send in the qualifying. So we'd have to approve the ordinance before that. Can we just move the qualifying to July? Is it July?
I think so. I think so.
It was August.
It's August, I think.
It changed.
It's earlier in August, but
It's earlier now.
we have time.
Oh, we
don't
do.
have tons of
We do.
time, but we have
No.
time.
Good point.
Please consider that. One more topic, and then I'll let you go, is that and actually, I think Mr. Schoen wants to talk about this, the police and fire pension boards. When I became mayor, I took the spot on the police and fire pension boards. City manager served on them also, and I was under the assumption that these were positions that the mayor and the city manager filled, that they were dedicated. But they're not. They're council appointments, and first of all, I don't remember anybody ever appointing me. So I don't think anybody ever asked you to appoint me, so I might not be a bona fide member. And second, and maybe we did.
I move to approve.
And, well, second thing is with the city manager transition, we are down a person. And in talking to the city attorney, I discovered that that person can be another council member, but it can also be a citizen, and it doesn't have to be me either.
Right.
So I'm appointed and I'm there, but we need one more person, and I need to kind of gauge from you and get some input from the city attorneys, how you want to handle that.
Well, it needs to be a resident, so I don't know how the city manager got onto the pension board because he wasn't a resident, but that's all the qualification it is that the person be a resident. So it doesn't have to be the city manager, but this would be, since there's a spot open right now, it would need to get onto an agenda. And I don't know, I mean, you'd have to pick the person either through asking for people to apply, just like you do other boards. Or if you want, you don't have to do it that way because it doesn't say how it should be done. You could make a proposal, but it needs to get on an agenda for you to then approve the person.
The board currently has a citizen, correct? Because I served as a citizen on that board long before I was elected.
There's, I believe, 5 people on the board, and it states that 2 of them are to be residents. 2 of them, I believe, are fire, I think, and police have the same provision, are actual officers. And then the 5th person is selected by the previous 2 people, the officers. So there's nothing that says how this is supposed to be done. Just that the council needs to appoint the person, the people, the 2 people.
Councilmember Chambers?
Are the pension board meetings now noticed as public meetings?
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
So if a council member was on it, that wouldn't affect sunshine or anything?
Right. They're sunshine meetings.
They're sunshine meetings, okay. Thank you.
So I don't want to get out of turn here, but I also don't want to create unnecessary work. I've spoken to Vice Mayor Schisler, right, about the, giving him the schedule. I'm prepared to nominate him, and he's, I think, anyway, willing to take this on. Does this need to be agended, or can I make a motion to nominate him now?
You can make a motion and to nominate him now. I mean, this is a noticed meeting. Every single thing you do does not have to be on an agenda, as long as the meeting is a duly noticed meeting. So if you want to make a motion right now and do that, you can do that.
Okay, so why don't I do this? If I can remember how to do this correctly, I'm going to make a motion now to open nominations. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motions? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
We are now open for nominations. I nominate Councilmember Schisler. Are you willing to accept?
Yes.
Are there other nominations to the Fire and Police Pension Board? This is the fire.
This is fire.
Are there other nominations to the Fire Pension Board? Other nominations? If not, I move to close nominations. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. We have 1 nominee, Vice Mayor Schisler. I make a motion to approve that nominee to the Fire Pension Board. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays? Congratulations.
Thank
You are on another board. Now I make a motion to open the nominations for the Police Pension Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of opening nominations to the Police Pension Board signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, nominations are now open. I nominate Vice Mayor Schisler to the Police Pension Board. Yes,
Can he serve on both?
I do.
I know, but you did so as the mayor.
No, he can.
Okay.
So are there other nominations to the Police Pension Board? If not, I make a motion to close nominations. All those in favor, second, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, nominations are closed. I make a motion to approve the 1 nominee, Vice Mayor Schisler, to the Police Pension Board. Is there a motion, or is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Motion passes. Congratulations. I think we just successfully appointed you to the Fire and Police Pension Board.
That is interesting because when I served, I was a citizen and there were the 2 officers, the city manager and the mayor. So it has been assumed for a long time that those are the people who took those
Correct.
2 seats.
Correct. So this will be revisited annually when we do our normal.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Mr. Schoen, are we good? Did I sufficiently?
So far, so good, unless we find something to the contrary, and then we'll have to do this again.
If we do, we'll fix it.
When is the next meeting?
Hey, Ross,
May.
clarification, is that going to be till the next time you do appointments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll get back to you on that because I don't know what the rules say about the term of the appointees in the charter or in the pension. So we'll have to get a discussion on that. Okay, any other new business or board reports? Okay, thank you. City manager's report.
Thank you. I have 2 items for you tonight. The first is a change order that was made on a purchase order that was issued on February 23rd, 2022 for $24,500. This was for the stormwater project that we've discussed earlier on Rainforest Street. The project was not expected to exceed $25,000. It did not go out to bid. We received 3 quotes. Once the project began, and the project has begun, and we've paid $12,000 to date. Subsequently, it was learned that there had to be an additional cost to finish the project. The additional cost is $1,853. This puts the project over the $25,000 bid threshold. We can't go back out to bid since the work and the payments have already begun. The additional $1,853 will cover the cost of 2 vinyl gates and fence materials that is being used to construct the fencing along the easement that was referenced earlier. Purchasing policy allows the city manager to approve a change order to a PO if the increase is less than 10%, which this does. The staff has budgeted $150,000 for stormwater retention pond projects, so the expense, the added expense, is in the budget already. I want you to be aware of this change since it does push the actual price over the $25,000 by $1,353. I have approved the change order, and I'm notifying council of that act. So, just so you're aware. The second item is just that we received a letter today, Chief Albano and I, from the collective bargaining unit in the police department requesting a notification to open negotiations. Their contract expires September 30th, 2022. So we will begin that process. You may be asked in the near future to schedule a shade meeting once we have an idea of where those negotiations are going. So that's just for information. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Spinner.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Are we at the point where 25 is problematic, 25,000? Are you finding that we need to raise, I mean, I'm afraid to raise the ceiling. It's not something I'm real comfortable with, but is 25 now the old 15?
I don't know. I don't have enough experience here with how things are going. I can ask, or you can ask staff if you'd like right now and see if you can get an opinion on how they feel. I haven't seen it enough here to really be able to determine it.
Vice Mayor?
I'm comfortable with the 25 at this point. This is just a fluky situation. It would have been handled differently had they known at that point in time.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable.
Where they didn't know that some of the gates they're connecting to would be wooden, and they had to get the aluminum other than the wooden.
Okay.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when, but I think Finance at one time requested it to go up, and we debated that, and we kept it at 25.
Yeah, we did. But that was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, but this, what happened here, if the cap was 100,000, what happened here had nothing to do with the amount. It's a project slipped over the wouldn't matter what the threshold is, it could slip over the top
Yeah.
of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spina. City Attorney's report?
This has to do with 2 liens concerning the property at 113 Glen Ridge Avenue. There had been 2 code violations. One of them had to do with parking a trailer in the driveway. The other one had to do with work being done at the premises without pulling a permit. The lien amount for one of those was $3,875. The city's costs there were $116.75. That was settled for $616.75. The other one was concerning the permit issue. The lien amount was $9,225. City's costs were $136.96. That was settled for $1,136.96. We have received the check now for $1,753.71, settling both of those liens.
Meaning that everything has been,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I have a comment.
Vice Mayor
Yeah,
Sistrunk.
thank you. I have to say, Ms. Shoshone, and to the code enforcement, I was against this program to begin with. In fact, I think I voted against it both times. But I must say that when I'm wrong, and I'll say it. This program works well. You guys do a great job with it, and it was the right thing to do. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anything else, Mr. Schoen? Nothing. Council members, questions? Is there any other business to come before the council? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.